Hi, and welcome to episode 5 of In the Wrong Bed podcast. I am your host, Justin Weigler. With me, as always, is Jonathan Sokol. And this week, we are going to talk about Premier League Week 5, as well as the UK Open. So, starting off with the Premier League, last week actually was quite fascinating. One, Peter Wright actually showed he had a pulse last week.
Oh, I know.
Um,
Finally.
and every game was close. I don't think there was. I think there was one game that went 6-3, and all the other games were 6-4 closer,
It was all, yeah, 10 or over.
which makes it a little bit tougher
So all
now.
the over nine and a halfs were
Yeah,
killing it.
exactly. All the overnight and that's because the games I thought were going to be close were close, but even the games I did not think were going to be close, like that Littler match, where Peter Wright honestly deserved a better fate there. Like I
Yeah,
think he had 104 and a half average and still lost. And you saw the look on his face at the end. It was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to play any better than this. Like, and he knew it. But I think it was encouraging for him though, because he played well all week in some of the floor events, and then he showed it on the big stage that he still has it. So um, maybe what's interesting now is that I wonder if everyone's catching up with it on the odds.
I know. I mean, it's pretty even with Aspinall, and I don't know if I'm ready to trust Peter Wright again yet. We'll have to. I need one more week at least.
I mean, speaking of that match, it's not the first match of the day, but the second one. But we can actually talk about that. Is that it's about minus 160 to Nathan Aspinall, and they're two bottom of the people at the bottom of the league, so they're going to really feel like they need these points. But
Oh yeah, yeah,
I think Aspinall has been playing well, but it's still not like great. But I wonder if now that Peter Wright's playing well, plus 135, like if he throws 104 again this week, he's going to win that match. I don't know if
oh
he's gonna
definitely.
he's gonna be an Aspinall, but this could be another. I think this might be another week where all the matches are close enough that maybe over 9.5 is the play, since it's over 9.5 flat on this. Like, I'm wondering, maybe if it's gonna be too close to call, or if you believe in, if you think Peter Wright has it back, it's probably a tasty as an underdog at plus 135. I know you don't quite
Yeah.
feel the same way though.
No, not yet. Something maybe I would be more inclined to bet his average over 93 and a half. Maybe he's gotten to the point where he's at least out of the 80s and could
Yeah.
put up a mid 90s
You know what? That's
average for the
actually
match.
what I was going to say next. It's 93 now, although they have it juiced to minus 140 on DraftKings, but I
Yeah.
think people found that. So if it creeps up a little bit, I mean, that's a tough price to take at minus 140, but I do think that could be a good play though. I'm not sure how much, I'm not sure if I'm willing to go at minus 140. If it goes to like 94 and a half, like minus 110 or something like that, I think I might be more inclined to take that. But um, I think everyone's kind of figured this out right now, is that Peter Wright's
Yeah.
playing well and the book hasn't. The only reason the book has moved it is because people have bet it.
Right. Right. They hadn't completely adjusted it based off of the numbers. So it's only been 1 week. But yeah, I think I kind of like that. I'll probably put some on over 93 and a half still, even with the juice.
Yeah, if there's a better price out there, I don't know if what they have on low vig, but if there are better prices out there, I definitely look for it. But 93 and a half seems eminently doable for Peter Wright the way he's playing. It's one of those things that if you put this a year ago, you would have hammered the over like nonstop on that.
Hmm.
Like it's just I think he's starting to come back out of the upswing. So I think that this, and because he is like, I kind of like Aspinall over 94 and a half as well, even though
Me
his
too.
is flat. Like I think they both, they kind of need the points. They're going to push each other a little
I
bit.
think that also,
And I
yeah, I like
think,
betting both of those, and maybe an
yeah,
over 9.5 in the match. Maybe is the right way
this
to
this
go there.
feels like it's going to be a close match. I feel like
Yeah.
over 9.5 and both of them being over the averages is probably a good bet on this one. I think I'll probably be taking all three of that. The
parlay them all together.
actually, you know what? It's
Why not?
things like that I
I
wish I
wish they would.
could,
I
but
know.
they're smart enough to know that some of these things are very, very correlated, especially say Peter Wright plus 135 and over 93 and a half. They know
Yeah.
that's likely going to be correlated. Or
Of course.
conversely, the under plus Aspinall, winning the match outright.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that they've even people who don't know how to bet on darts have kind of caught on to that. Hey, maybe you shouldn't be able to parlay these things.
definitely.
The other half of that bracket is actually a good one. Luke Humphreys and MVG to actually start off the night. And this one has actually MVG is a slight favorite, which is what I would agree with at minus 120. But
He
uh,
deserves it based
the way
on the way he's playing. Yeah.
he's been playing absolutely unreal recently, especially on Premier League stage. I think it's what 3 nights in a row he's won. So he really is sped out there. At some point, he's going to let up. Like he just gets. I should say he's going to let up. He gets disinterested
Mm.
sometimes, and he really loves the Premier League. And I don't know if he's in disinterested mode quite yet, but if he keeps winning every night, he's going to be quite soon because he's going to have a space
Well,
locked up.
I think he's interested because he likes beating Littler. So he
Well,
wants to
that's
keep
true. He
keep
really
doing
you could
that.
tell. Is actually I was talking about this with my girlfriend. There's certain matches you can tell with MVG where he's really into it and he really wants to win that match. And it is most certainly Luke Littler is now that person. And I think he feels threatened by him.
Yeah, yeah. He's definitely getting up for those matches, and he's intent on not letting him win one of these weeks, I
Well, not
think.
only that, he just doesn't want him to steal the spotlight. I think he feels threatened that, like, oh, wait, they
Yes,
think
yeah.
he's going to be the new top dog in darts. Even though MVG hasn't won a world title in a few years, like, he's still pretty much like, he's the guy with the belt that you want to
Yeah.
beat, right?
Yeah. He's still top of the top of the list when it
It's
comes.
kind of like
Well, I mean, Humphreys maybe had it for a little while, but yeah.
yeah. It's kind of like, even when The Rock wasn't at his best and didn't have the title, like, everyone wanted to beat The Rock, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the same kind of thing. Like everyone wants to beat, MVG is still considered kind of the king. And I think he feels certain that Littler is so quickly reminds him of himself, I think.
Uh, yeah.
I mean, you think about it, I mean, MVG won the world title in the BDO. I mean, but at 17. Like,
I
and he
know.
almost
I
did
know.
and he's like, oh crap, this looks oddly familiar. And he sees it.
Except Littler has hair. That's it.
Except Littler has hair for now. But if you're shocked if he's gonna be bald at 28, I will not.
That's
Um
the life
you
of
already, you
darts
already,
players.
you're the life of darts players all looking 15 years older than they actually are. You know, right now the crown is still with Stephen
Yeah.
Bunting, but um getting back on topic, actually this match, I think again, like I like the over on it. I just don't see
Me too. This is what
these
I want. Yeah.
separating. Like,
Over
like
9.5. It's flat. Like it
yeah.
just seems like a 6-3 for anyone to win 6-3. I'd kind of be surprised. So
Yeah, I would be too. I mean, the only reason I wouldn't be surprised, it's 6-3 and the person on throw wins a break, is up one break. Like that happens. And that's why nine. And by the way, that's why for all you bettors out there, that's why 9.5 is the line on these first to six games, unless there is a massive underdog in the game, then they'll skew it to 8.5. But the reason it's 9.5 is because one, you don't know who's going to be on throw until right before the match. And then even if you do, even if they're like a slight favorite, like they're not even likely to break more than once, even if it is once, um, then that's how you get the 9.5. So that's really why 9.5 is the line, and why, incidentally, in the Premier League, like overs have been killing it this year, especially in non-Peter Wright matches where he was a big underdog. So
yeah, it really feels like most of the matches end up being coin flip type of matches with when you have the top 8 players in the world. So you kind of expect these to be going to, 10, 11 legs a lot of the time.
which is why there's value in underdogs. Um, when you get to guys who were relatively close in play in their form is both, there's not a huge disparity in one's form, then I think there's certainly value on underdogs hitting. So
Yeah.
honestly, like I think MVG's deserved of being the favorite. If it gets to be if it gets to be evens for like Luke Humphreys, I might take Luke Humphreys because I think this is basically a coin flip match, especially if Luke Humphreys gets to throw first. Like you
Exactly.
wouldn't be
Yeah.
shocked if Luke Humphreys won this match. No one would be.
Right.
And I think MVG's kind of like he's just due to lose. Like it's at some point, you can only rattle off so many wins against the top 8 in the world, on a consistent basis. Like it's like 9, 10 in a row he's won. Like it's just
Oh,
eventually
that's
something,
true. Yeah.
yeah, like eventually it just has to happen. These guys are too good. And now that he's the
Yeah.
leader,
He
I
does
think
have a
everyone's
pretty good
gunning for
streak
him.
going. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly. So I mean, honestly, if I had to bet it, I might actually take Humphreys in this match, but I would take the over 9.5 for certain.
Yeah. So on the one thing that I was noticing this one, I mean, I always like Humphreys to throw a decent amount of 180s, and his -1.5 is -115 against MVG. It feels like that's one that I'm really looking at. I just think he's a bit more likely to end up with more 180s than MVG in this match. So
Well, you say -115, -1.5.
minus
Oh,
a half.
minus a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for him to win it outright.
Yeah.
I kind of like it too. And he always seems to consistently have 3 or 4
Yeah.
at least in each of these matches. So, and it's over 3.5 is his 180s. I gotta be honest with you. Instead of that, I almost like the 3.5 better. If you're telling what's more likely, him to beat MVG by 1 or him to have over 3.5, I think it's probably over 3.5, but you could convince
Mhm.
me
Yeah.
that honestly that both can hit.
Yeah.
But that's actually a really good one because he's been tossing a ton of 180s
Yeah.
once
He's
he get in his groove. And we know there's going to probably be 10 legs.
right.
We each think there's going
Exactly.
to be 10
Exactly.
or 11 legs. So that
Yeah.
extra leg's going to being it's gonna be is really valuable when you're calculating honestly in any match. Like if you think there's going to be, if you're looking at 180s, it's just a multiplier of how many per leg they have and how many legs you think they're going to be in the match. If you think there's going
Exactly.
to be more legs than the bookie thinks there's value on the over. If you don't and you think it's going to be a blowout, look for unders on 180s.
Yeah. Yeah. Humphreys, in my mind, is one of the more consistent 180s throwers. So I
Hmm.
definitely will look at him to maybe have at least one more than a VG in that match.
Yeah, absolutely. Next line is Gerwin Price and Rob Cross, and Gerwin's about -155, -160, depending where you're looking against Cross. Um, again, this is like this feels feels a little high, honestly. I think Rob Cross is still throwing fairly well. And also Rob Cross like seems to always pull like a big check out of his rear occasionally, like
No,
to
he
make sure you keep, and he's always in the he's never like way out of leg. It's rare that he's like
no.
back on 300 or something like that. He's just consistently putting in hundreds, 140s, to kind of keep him in the leg. And if the other guy ends up not throwing or just having a little bit of trouble checking out, which Gordon Price goes through spells of for some reason not being able to check out well. Um, I kind of like Rob Cross here actually. Um, get at the if it at like plus 120 over
Me
Gerwin
too.
Price.
I like him as the underdog here. I mean, last week I thought he played pretty well. He actually started throwing some 180s. That was one bet that I was kind of liked riding the under on Rob Cross 180s, but last week he was showing up and putting a few on the board. So I, yeah, I'm gonna be leaning Rob Cross money line to win this one. I like getting the extra juice. They, like I was saying before, all of these feel like a coin flip, and that's just I don't value Gerwin Price that much more than Rob Cross, to be honest.
Yeah, and Gerwin's always has the crowd against him, anyways. But not that Rob Cross is some massive like. Not that he's a bad guy, or but he's not always like the crowd favorites everywhere he goes.
Yeah,
Um,
where are we at this week? Actually,
actually,
did
that's a really good question. I probably should have looked at that before. I want to say
had you?
they're in Exeter. I think they're in Exeter this week.
Uh, all right,
Um, I might be wrong on that. I'll get fact checked at the end of this one. Uh,
that was my
th-
bad.
yeah, the bet I actually like on this is Rob Cross over over a half a checkout at plus 105. I think him
uh,
because he's not a huge 180 thrower, and he throws a lot of 100s, 140, he has a lot of two treble visits, which it gets him down into the 100 to 120 range quite a bit.
yeah,
And because of that, and he's lower variance that way, he seems to have a lot of 100 checkout opportunities. Um, and with Gerwin Price being Gerwin Price, he needs to take out those 100 checkouts a lot, just because Gerwin Price is always in range too. So I actually like the over a half for Rob Cross to have a checkout.
100 plus checkout.
I think he had a gorgeous one, like 144 last week, I think, to win one of his matches. He had what was it? He had 818s, I think he hit.
Oh man,
Yeah, treble 18, double 18 to win it. It was kind of a crazy out. But he loves 18.
I know.
Um,
Every time I'm watching, he ends up on a number that's a little bit off. I'm always remembering when he's a double 18 guy. He's always setting himself up to head towards that double 18. So
yeah, and it's one of those things, like it's frustrating though when he doesn't hit it, because then you got to go over to nine, and all of a sudden, like you
oh
went for
no,
18 intentionally, and then you go inside the 18 and then inside the nine. Now all of a sudden your last dart's, you know,
yeah, it's worthless.
worthless. So it's like you could have had, at that point, if you're signing up for 18s, you probably could have had tops. You're better off going 20, 10, 5 if they're close, because at
Yeah,
least you get all three shots at a double with. But I think, he usually is so good at double 18 that it almost doesn't matter.
yeah, yeah. But it probably does. That's
But it
what
probably
it's like.
does. And
He's
that's the thing. That's what bites you in close matches, though. That's the kind of
exactly.
thing that really comes to bite you when, especially in short
You're
formats where, you know, it goes 6-5 the wrong way because you went
you
18s and you
lost a
couldn't hit
dart.
18s that
Yeah,
day.
yeah. Yeah, honestly, that was one thing I was wondering about him. It because it comes down to these, razor thin edges in a lot of these matches, and he has a disadvantage in my mind by loving those double 18s so much, just because that third dart, if he's inside twice, he has no out, and so that's not the case with everyone else.
Yeah, and it's kind of like mathematically you wouldn't tell anybody to ever do that. You would never
No,
say, "Hey, pick 18 over 20." Like you wouldn't do it.
yeah,
Like it's just,
makes
I
no
mean,
sense.
if you really think, and there's actually something that's probably interesting to look and see whether or not what his checkout percentage is on 18 versus everywhere
Yeah,
else, because I think it's probably better than a lot of people. Kind
could
of like
be.
Johnny Clayton with double eight, it's why he doesn't mind going for bullseyes, because even if he misses, he knows he's going to throw 9 double 8 with relative consistency. And
Yeah,
I think Rob
but
Cross feels that way about double 18 as well.
yeah, it's worth a deep dive because I am curious about that.
Yeah, maybe for our next podcast, actually, we ought to have that as
But
take a
I
look at
used
that
to
and
like
throw it up
double
there.
or double 11 when I first started playing, and then figured out quickly it's not exactly the best way to go.
No, no, no. But 12, but this is also why Gordon Price loves 12-6-3. If he doesn't go for tops, he goes for 12s.
Yeah,
like much
yeah.
more often than it'll go for 16. It'll set up 24. But yeah,
At
so
least
yeah,
you have
double
that
six is
third
good.
dart there. It's
Exactly. At least you have the
yeah.
third dart. After double 11, you don't get any darts. So good luck with that. Yeah, people find that out real quick. Um, which is also why, incidentally, I think on 124, if they hit the 60, I think they almost missed treble 14 on purpose because they don't want to
Uh,
go for double 11. I think they'd rather go single 14 than bull, than go treble 14, double 11. I, I
yeah.
I just don't think they like it that much.
Well, I mean,
And then
the sh
mathematically, it might,
yeah.
unless you need to, like, I wouldn't even do it.
uh, I generally think people like double 11, double six, just because you have your variance in the vertical direction, which is kind of nice.
Hmm.
But yeah,
No,
maybe
that's exactly why they love it, because you can
yeah,
miss high or low anywhere, and as long as you have the right line on it, you're good.
yeah,
But God help you when you miss inside on double six. Now, yeah, double three sucks. Um, Last match, Littler versus Michael Smith. Littler is actually at minus 215. I think this has kind of gone up as the week's gone on. I kind of like Littler minus 1.5 though at minus 130. If he could just get
yeah.
a single break over there in there. Um, I just think Littler is just better than Smith. Not
He is, he is.
it just I mean, not shocked if Smith wins this, but I just think Littler's like kind of due for a win, like just to win the night. I think, and he's in the right bracket because when you in his bracket is the Rob Cross Gerwin Price match, where I think Littler, especially after losing last week, like to Price, I think he really wants kind of a little bit of revenge. I think him getting to the finals is very, very doable.
I definitely like Littler in this one. And then when you're comparing the money line minus 225 to minus 120 or minus 125 on the minus 1.5, it's so attractive to just want to go for the minus 1.5 there.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, uh, uh, it's almost shocking how big of a difference it is. It feels like there's not that many, 6-5 matches and 6-5 wins that happen, but it happens enough that
It does
it
happen enough.
justifies that kind of line difference. But
Yeah, it does. It does happen. I mean, we saw this last week. I mean, Littler
yeah,
over
it was a
right.
ton of
As
them.
yeah, I as usual hammered the wrong one at minus 2.5 for Littler, and Peter Wright decided to
Oh
show up.
yeah, and
Like
then he barely eked it out six
yeah,
five.
exactly. He barely ekes out 6-5. At that point, I was cheering for Peter Wright after I lost the bet, but um, yeah, I think uh, the so the one thing I do like is a weird random bet. Um, Bullseye finishes over a half plus 130 on DraftKings in
Mm.
this match. Littler sets himself up for 170s and bullseyes all the time, even if he doesn't need to.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And his individual bullseye is plus 240. But Michael Smith has to go for bullseyes because I think he's going to be behind in the match quite a bit to Littler. And Michael Smith sits on a lot of 130s.
hmm,
And that's obviously either two treble 20s, double five, or more likely one treble 20, one single, and then to the bull. So I'm liking this match, and I probably will take um, the over 130. And Michael Smith bullseye is plus 450. That's a kind of tempting
ooh,
as a real long shot, but I don't know. I'm kind of
yeah, I like
tempted
that.
on this to maybe take all three and hope one of them hits for a profit on 2 out of 3.
Yeah, I like those bets for both of those guys. It feels like there'll be at least one of them's going to hit a bullseye check out here.
Yeah, and Littler just sets it up. It's one of those things that like I think he should mind it less in the Premier League, only because there's less tournament losings to worry about. Like I wouldn't do that. Like if you're in the final, if you're in like the 17th leg of the UK Open, like I would not advise just setting up for bullseye and maybe going for you know throwing 18 for a 32 out or something
Yeah,
like that instead.
so Yeah. One last thing on Premier League. So a couple of the guys, Littler and MVG, have 100.5 averages as their lines. That's usually the point where I'm really looking to get in on unders on the averages.
I
I mean,
agree.
just guys can average over 100 in the short term, but in the long term, I think you're gonna be winning bets when you're betting on the unders once those lines get above 100. But
Yeah, 100.5 is usually like, you're right. I start thinking like, yeah, that's how many times can you go over? Although proven wrong time and time again on this. Like, but it feels like, especially with someone who's maybe not in top shape, maybe like a Luke Humphreys should be under on that. And probably even MVG is probably due for a little bit of regression
yeah,
from his averages. So I kind of agree with the 105. Before we move to the OK Open, who wins the week?
I gotta say maybe this is a Rob Cross week. Every week is the one I hope for, but
Yeah, because we have
I
season bets
like
on him. Yeah,
yeah,
I keep hoping for him too.
yeah. I like
I yeah,
his 180 hits last week, and I feel like maybe he's ramping up a little bit, but we'll see.
yeah. So for him to win the week is actually plus 1,000. Intriguing odds actually at that. I kind of like Luke Littler plus 300. He hasn't won a week yet. It feels like he's gotten some, I don't want to say some bad beats, but wrong end of
Yeah,
6.5s.
definitely.
It just feels like he's in the bracket this week where he doesn't have to face either MVG to the final or Luke Humphreys to the final. He's in the relatively easier setup this week. So I like him
That's
at
true.
plus 300. I think I'll put a little on
That
him, and I might sprinkle a little on Cross at maybe a plus 1,000 because that feels that feels
it feels
high
high.
for someone that anyone can win these weeks, right?
Yeah, no, I like Littler in this week as well. I think that's definitely a good way to go because of the bracket setup.
Yeah, exactly. On to the UK Open now. So
All
the
right.
UK Open is an interesting format for those of you who don't know. Um, if you're in the top 232, you get a bye to the fourth round as everyone else plays out their first three rounds, which is kind of
So
crazy. But there's something like 160 entrants into this, so it really is kind of the NCAA tournament, basketball tournament, March Madness, if you will, for darts. They don't like, there's people in here who barely make it in and will get absolutely slaughtered. But it is also an open tournament, so you get some big upsets as well. The crazy thing about it is that after the fourth round, I believe, after the third or fourth round, everyone gets reseeded. So there's no seeds after that round. So MVG could play Luke Humphreys, even though they're 1 and 2 after the fourth round, which is kind of crazy. And it's a real quirk because it's the only tournament I think that does this. And it's a real quirk, which makes your long shot betting very interesting, because it buys you more values on long shots and less values on favorites, simply because the favorites could very well have just keep getting bad draw after bad draw and hitting favorites over and over again in trying to get through. And if you hit, you know, even MVG is not immune to hitting someone like Aspinall and then Rob Cross and then you know, Gerwin Price or something back to back to back. And then it's like, well, the odds of him getting through that are much less than, if you're trying to get through, Bradley Brooks and Christian Kist in your second and third games. Like it just,
yeah,
there's a lot of variance in that.
yeah, that is pretty exciting because then it gives us an opportunity to bet on some of these guys that we enjoy, but we don't see a whole lot in action in big tournaments. So I'm looking forward to betting on a few of the long shots and hoping they can win through a few rounds and see if we still have some value to be pulled out once they get
No,
deep into the
exactly.
tournament.
Exactly. Like everyone's in this tournament, like anyone you've heard of and a lot of people you haven't heard of, are in this tournament. Um, there's a real interesting like obviously if you get through to the fourth round, that's a lot less people you have to go through. But if you look at what happened last year, I mean, Andrew Gilging won famously in the last leg decider against the darts, incidentally, against MVG. But if you look at who he had to play, like in the semifinals, you look at what happened. Nathan Aspinall was playing great and ran into MVG in the quarterfinal and lost
Mm,
10-8 to him, even though he averaged, I think, almost 100. But in the semifinals, you had four people. You had Andrew Gildy, Adam Gablos, MVG, and Dimitri Vandenberg. And of all the people that you wanted to draw, you wanted to draw Adam Gablos. And that's what
mm.
happened with Andrew Gildy. And he ended up beating him 10-4. You'd way rather go through him than Dimitri or MVG. So what happened was it wasn't like it was a buy, but that just shows you that like how much like the getting lucky draws like as your matches go on really matter. And lucky and so is you don't want to hit giant people
Yeah,
like big hitters. If you can avoid them for a few rounds, that really helps. Which takes us to what we're going to talk about is who what long shots do you think have a good shot that you might like that could just be undervalued because they could get randomly drawn into good draws.
yeah. So there's these three guys that I really like who are pretty long shots in this tournament. So my favorite one of my favorite darts players who I haven't seen in any too many big tournaments is Cam Crabtree. So finally I'll get
Mm.
to see him playing in this one.
Well,
And
you see him in Modus.
yeah, I do. I do, but I think I just like the like his form overall. Seems very smooth. Seems to throw a decent amount of 180s. So he's one that I'll be watching. I think he was going off at like plus 40,000 if you can get it on some of the books. Otherwise, if you don't have the futures bets, then you can bet match by match along the way and try to roll over the winnings and play it that way. And you usually
Actually,
get better odds that way anyway. But
you usually get better odds that way. In a weird way, I actually think because there's so many people in this tournament that you could be better off actually betting some of these super long shots and then just betting against them if you're looking to hedge if they win a
yeah,
few rounds
yeah.
if they win 3-4 rounds. And the cool thing is especially your hedging would matter because you could see who they're going to end up they could get redrawn. And so if they end up drawing, like as that they could be drawn as a favorite or they could be drawn as a massive underdog. You don't know. But if they keep getting drawn as like maybe even monies or slight
Yeah,
favorites or
that
something
no, that
like
makes
that,
a lot of
all of a
sense.
sudden your big long shot could really hit as you can hopefully like bypass the round or let it ride for another round or two, depending who they're running up against.
So you want to throw out one of yours next?
Yeah, I actually not a long shot, but I love the way Ryan Searle's playing at 2200.
Yeah,
He's just playing so well right now. I think if he can keep his head in it, I think he's got a really good shot in it. Yeah, not the longest shot by any stretch, but um, definitely one that is intriguing. Another one that I actually like is actually Jeffrey Deswan. He always seems to do well in this tournament for
uh,
whatever. He famous a few years back when he was 5 years ago. He actually upset MVG in this tournament. But Deswan at plus 30,000 um, feels like it could be up there as well as maybe taking a flyer on for a little bit. Who
yeah.
else do you have?
So the other two guys that was looking at, Leonard Gates is one. He's been playing well. He's playing some senior events actually over in the UK for a little while, and seems to be playing quite well right now. So that was one I'm looking at betting to hopefully go deep into the tournament. One other guy that I ended up liking, kind of coming from Modus, was Dom Taylor. He's a
Hmm,
massive favorite in his first match against Brandon Western, but I think based on what I've seen, I feel like he has the what it takes to maybe make a decent run into this tournament.
yeah. Another one, actually, just the last one I kind of like is kind of a little bit out there is Radek Zagansky at plus 30,000.
Oh
Like he's
yeah.
shown enough. I mean, he's won a PDC floor event, so he can get through large field. Like there's nothing to say that he couldn't just draw well and get through a field like this either. So he's the one that I'm liking at 30,000 plus 30,000 as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. So
Oh, and Willie Borland, another
oh yeah,
another
Willie
another guy who's
Borland.
been on these
Yeah.
big stages before, and he's kind of fallen out a little bit lately, but we know he has the skill to actually get there and do well.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one too. Yeah, this is the problem. I'm going to take all these bets and then
I
we'll
know.
see. But Cyril's the one I like to actually has a legit shot at plus 22. So awesome. All right. So that is all the time we have for this week. But for Jonathan Sokol, I'm Justin Wagler. We'll see everybody next week for the next podcast, and we'll review UK Open and look what else is going on in the world of darts. So talk to everyone then.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.